And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, January 10th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We're brought to you by us. Sign up at Stokastic. There's a link in the description of this video. You can come in for a month for the sport of your choice, and it won't cost you a dime on our end. I do want you guys to hit the like button. I want you to subscribe to the channel. I want you to hit the notification bell so you know when every one of our shows go live. We got a 7-game slate ahead of us. Golden State is slightly shorthanded. Brooklyn slightly shorthanded. We've got some other news to wait on. And we have one really good basketball game today. The Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the New York Knicks. The rest of it, meh. But welcome back, Paolo Banchero. DK, how's it going, man?
Yeah, glad it's Friday. I am not glad, though, to try to figure out what Steve Kerr is going to do tonight with this rotation. I know we're talking about a little bit before the stream, but played slow-mo last night. That did not end well for the amount of minutes that he played. So we'll see. Especially if Jackson Davis gets ruled out, too, that'll make things a lot more interesting.
Yes, it will become incredibly problematic in terms of rostering these Golden State Warriors. I just finished a sim basically as we're talking. So I'm going to pull these lineups out of this sheet quickly, drop them in so that I have the most up-to-date info, because we got our ownership update at like 4:55, and I want to make sure whatever I'm getting is the proper stuff to talk about, because ownership is pretty wild, and I want to get an idea of where I'm actually going on this one, because the Warriors are just mildly owned today. I think would that be the right way to describe it? Mildly owned?
They're getting a little bit of ownership.
A little bit of popularity coming on here for old Golden State. So let me paste these bad boys in. Oh, God, this is going to be gross. Get ready, everybody. Let's have some fun. Game number 1. The Golden State Warriors are 10-point dogs in Indiana. 222 total. I'm going to have to take a pretty deep breath here to read off their injury report. It is one of those days. No Steph Curry, no Draymond Green, no Jonathan Kuminga, no Gary Payton, no Brandon Pajemski, no Andrew Wiggins. Moses Moody is probable. Trace Jackson Davis is questionable. And that is leading us to all of the ownership. Let's not get bogged down on any individual stuff right now. We still need their starting lineup. Just in general, about 300% of all ownership on this 8-game or 7-game slate is going to Golden State. That's like about 37% of all ownership is coming into the Warriors. 50 to Schroeder, 70 to Hield, 40 to Waters, 60 to Anderson, 20 to Trace Jackson Davis, 30 to Santos, 15 to Moody, 15 to Looney. Right now, only 1% to Pat Spencer. We'll dig into that one if we can. The moral of the story is everybody that's available, save for Quentin Post, is getting a ton of ownership. And if Trace Jackson Davis happens to be out, they have 9 guys. And then you could add Post to the list of guys that we're going to be getting to. Where the hell do we start?
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to need Warriors today, unfortunately, right? As you mentioned, right now they have 10 available guys. If Trace Jackson Davis gets ruled out, then they're only going to have 9. So they everyone would just look better in that scenario. Assuming Jackson Davis plays, I mean, you don't have a lot of data, obviously, with like all these guys off the court. It was Steph, Kuminga, Wiggins, Draymond, Pajemski all off the court, but I'm assuming like you're going to get a lot of usage and ball handling for a guy like Dennis Schroeder. He's at a reasonable price point at 5.4K. I'm assuming if this game stays competitive, he's playing over 30 minutes. So he stands out as an amazing option. I think Buddy Hield is going to get a lot of shots up. He played 32 minutes last game. I think those two are probably going to lead the team in usage. So I think those two look great. Kyle Anderson, as you mentioned, coming in around 60% ownership, barely played for no reason last night, which tilted both of us. But I think he's going to have to play a lot more in this game. Pretty good point per minute player. I think you should expect a decent run from him too. So I think those 3 are probably your easiest guys to get to. They're getting the most ownership, but I mean, like Guy Santos and Lindy Waters at close to the flat min price, they're going to have to play a lot. Those guys stand out as good options. I assume with Draymond out that you're probably going to get, assuming Jackson Davis plays, like most of the sentiments split with Jackson Davis and Looney. I do think Looney right now going a little bit under-owned, only about 10% ownership, just because Looney, pretty good fantasy point per minute player. The minutes have been, in question for most of the season, but in a situation like this, I think he's going to have to play more. So I think he looks pretty good. Moses Moody also not getting much ownership, I think is a little bit interesting. Like, I don't know why Lindy Waters and Guy Santos are like 2x the ownership of Moses Moody. So that one kind of stood out to me. And then if Jackson Davis gets ruled out, like Looney probably starts at the 5. You would probably get most of the sentiments for Looney and Quentin Post, who we haven't seen like at all this year. Quentin Post would actually be a viable option too. So, Friday, Steve Kerr, got to play a lot of Golden State Warriors. It's not exciting, but you have to.
No, I never thought that there would be a situation where I would have a guy projected for 0.8 fantasy points per minute, 26 minutes, and he's 3K. And I would be half the field for like just random reasons. Like I would just assume the guy that I had projected for 7x value would look amazing. But for some reason, I got half the field of Santos. Now, that's not to say that I'm not getting to all of the Warriors. I'm light on Schroeder. I'm over on Hield. I'm over on Waters. I have all of the Kyle Anderson. I'm over on Jackson Davis. I've got some Looney. So like I'm getting to all of it. But you don't normally see flat 3K guys that are going to probably play 24 plus minutes just be afterthoughts in my lineups. Same situation for Moses Moody. Like I don't have much. I kind of want to have all of these guys and I don't know how to do it. Somebody's inevitably going to be a little light. Like the most expensive guy in their lineup today is $5,500 Trayce Jackson Davis. Right. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've got 6 guys in the 3Ks today that are like definitely playing, and maybe 7 if Post has to play. It's just, you're just going to end up with all these dudes in some way because no matter what, they're playing 240 minutes. And there's only so many ways you could allocate those minutes before you have to start playing some of these guys. It's too short of a rotation. They would have to score like 70 fantasy point or 70 real points, which is pretty unlikely in this spot. And even then, you're probably still getting somebody that's in the best possible lineup. I don't know how you dodge these guys, and I don't even know what to say about them. I think Kyle Anderson's the best guy. I assume he starts at the 4, but I'm nervous from yesterday because it didn't go well rostering Slow-Mo.
No, it didn't. But yeah, so couple questions. So how many Warriors would you be comfortable playing in like a lineup?
I mean, I assume 4 is going to be a pretty regular occurrence. 3 and 4 will be like the most popular combinations. I wouldn't be shocked if I have 5. I haven't looked or set anything up to see if I do, but let's see. Schroeder, Waters, Anderson, Looney. That's 4. Hield, Anderson, 3, 4. A lot of 4s.
Yeah. I think probably like 4 is probably like your most optimal way, and then you could probably play 5. I don't even think you could play 6 with the salaries because they're all so cheap. Like you'd probably just be like have too much salary left over. But yeah, I mean, I think you're probably gonna want like ideally like 3 to 4.
Yeah. Assuming the starting lineup is Schroeder, Hield, Waters, Anderson, Trayce Jackson Davis. Is that where you're leaning?
So can you say that again? Schroeder, Hield.
Let's do the 3 easy ones. Schroeder, Hield, Trayce Jackson Davis.
Yep.
I think are set in stone.
Yes.
I think Kyle Anderson has to start, but best laid plans. I was assuming Waters as the 5th guy. Are you thinking more Santos or Moody?
Yeah, I agree. And now that I'm looking at like just the lineup and thinking about it, I do agree because I think they need some size out there. I think Slow-Mo does start. And then, that 5th starter, I think it could be Waters, could be Moody, could even be Santos maybe. Like, I think there's a few different directions that could go. But yeah, I think that Hield, Schroeder, Jackson Davis for sure, and then Slow-Mo, pretty confident he will start too.
Zion, suspended 1 game.
So he's not playing tonight then?
It's a violation of team policies. So if that's the case, you would think it's today. It's not like he's going to appeal the team.
Right.
Like if this were from the league, then I think you could like buy a day. What did he do? Like
I'm trying to look it up.
Seconds during the team buffet.
Let's see. Okay. Sham said, yeah, just violation of team
Oh,
policies.
yeah, he's out. He's out.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone's just saying, yeah, violation of team policy. So we have no more like info other than that.
No. Huh. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Hypothetically. Oh, not even hypothetically. For one thing, I'm noticing just from my sheet, if Quentin Post is not playing today, which is sort of my assumption, this is going to be a two-part question.
Yep.
Do you see any scenario where they're playing Jackson Davis, Looney alongside of each other? I can say this much. They've played 1 minute alongside of each other this year and last year combined.
I would be pretty surprised if they play alongside of each other.
So would I. My assumption is we're getting 48 minutes in some order to Trace Jackson Davis, Looney, and Post. However that breaks down.
Yes.
If we ignore Post, the tallest guys on this team are 6'9" today. Kyle Anderson, Trace Jackson Davis, and Kevon Looney.
I forgot. Kevon Looney is always he's shorter than I think. He's always thinking, oh, he's like a bigger guy, but no, he's 6'. Yeah, he's undersized.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And then below that, it's probably like what? You have 3 guys at 6'9", and then you have like a lot of guards.
6'6" Santos and 6'6" Lindy Waters.
Whew.
So next question for you. Okay. If Trace Jackson Davis happens to be out, I think we're both on the same page that Kevon Looney is getting the start, and then we're playing quite a bit of the $3,200 Kevon Looney.
Yeah, I think if Jackson Davis is out, I'm pretty sure Looney will start. And I think Looney would probably be my favorite Warrior in that. It'll probably be him in slow-mo. I mean, you had like all of them, but like, yeah, he would stand out as like an amazing value if Jackson Davis can't play.
What would you want to do with Quentin Post in that scenario? Because he will be a flat 3K center option. And he will probably play every minute that Kevon Looney doesn't play.
Yeah.
Fouls be damned, I guess. Admittedly, I don't know a damn thing about this dude.
Yeah. I would have some interest. I mean, I would want to see what ownership is. I was just looking up like G League stats. He's averaging like 19 and 9 in 27 minutes. Sounds about right for a big man. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely have some interest. I assume like in that scenario, like he'd be pretty low owned. So yeah, like I think he would be like an interesting pivot off of Kevon. You could probably even play them both, to be honest, 3.2K and 3K.
I'll tell you what, that's not what I assumed he looked like. I didn't know he was Dutch. Guy's from Amsterdam. Interesting. Let's see. All right. Final season at Boston College last year. 32 minutes a game. Averaged 17 and 8. Not a lot of blocks. Shot 43% from 3. Did he actually take threes?
That I don't know.
Or is that percentage like phony? Let's find out here. All right. Boston College last year. Quentin Post, 50 of 116 threes last year, 43% at Boston College. So this guy can shoot, I guess.
Okay.
That's okay. So that makes me think that he could conceivably play a little bit more and play alongside one of those other two idiots.
Maybe.
Like, could he be the 5 and Trace Jackson? Like, nominally, can they be 4-5 and he's stretching from the corner?
Yeah, probably.
That changes the way that I want to project this team. Just a little bit. Like, now I feel like, is it crazy if he gets an 8-minute rotation at the end of the first quarter and the beginning of the second quarter? I don't think it is now.
Yeah, I think realistically, like, if Jackson Davis plays, like you could see a little bit of Post. Yeah, I agree.
Like if his 3-point shit from last year was 0 of 0, I'd be like, I'm good. Like that's not going to happen. He took the third most threes of anybody on Boston College last year.
Wow. Yeah, I did not know that. I agree. Like I didn't know much about him either because he played like one game I think in the summer league and he barely played because he was come back from injury. I want to say, so didn't get to see much.
I am not familiar with your games, sir. The year before he didn't play nearly as much, but he took 54 threes, shot another 42%. He's also he was an 82% free throw shooter last year, 80 for for his entire college career. So like I think the shot's real. Huh. Man, I did not see that coming. Yeah, I'm going to reproject him with a little bit more playing time. I mean, if you're ever like, what's the point of having him on the roster if this isn't the spot where you like check and see how he looks, you know?
Right.
Which really makes the rest of this disgusting.
Yes.
But it also makes me way more nervous about taking bench guys from the Warriors than it did before.
Yeah, like if he for sure plays, obviously that would like make just everyone a little bit riskier.
Okay. Keep that in mind, guys. We unearthed this on the fly. Admittedly, I didn't dig in much because I just assumed the 7 foot, 238-pound guy that didn't do shit for the Warriors yet didn't shoot threes. But see what happens when you assume things. You learn information when you research it. That's what happens when you assume. Do you have anything else you want to say for the Warriors other than play a bunch of them?
No, that's it. You got to play a lot of Warriors, sadly.
You sure do. You sure do. Do you got to play a lot of the Pacers? Because Pascal Siakam's projected for 11% ownership and everybody else is 4 or below. And we are still waiting on the news of whether or not Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner play, which could create a little bit of additional value, including a $3,700 TJ McConnell.
Yeah. I kind of lean that Halliburton plays. Turner, on the other hand, I think is more 50-50. Last game that Miles Turner did not play, you saw Thomas Bryant pick up a start. He played a lot more than I thought he would. He played 28 minutes, lost the last 4 to 5 minutes due to a blowout too. So like Thomas Bryant would be firmly in play for value in that scenario. And then obviously if like Halliburton doesn't play, you'd get a lot more ball handling for like Nembhard and McConnell, who'd be good values. But yeah, assuming everyone is in, Siakam getting the most ownership, I think is fine. Like I'm indifferent on him at 10% ownership or so. I do think Halliburton's going a little bit under-owned, sub 5%. The usage has ticked up a little bit for him, the potential assists as well. So I'd have a little bit of interest in Halliburton as a contrarian spend up, but yeah, assuming this team is fully healthy, there's really not much. Obviously, if you get one or both of Halliburton and Turner out, they're going to have some more value. But we already have a ton of value with Golden State. So yeah, right now, not much interest for me for the Pacers.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get to much here. A couple shares of Halliburton, random Siakam share, random Nembhard share. But if we lose Turner again, and if we potentially lose Halliburton here, there's going to be a little bit of value. Now, Thomas Bryant will not look the same at 4,200 as he did a couple days ago, but he will still be a decent option, especially if they're willing to play him as much as they did last time, which was quite a bit more than I was ever anticipating. He ended up getting 28 minutes, which was more than I expected. You project him for 28 minutes today. It's going to look pretty damn good.
Agree.
And he'd still be like the 6th best value on the Warriors.
I know, right? Like you're probably still going to rank behind some of the Warriors for sure.
Allegedly late to the team plane. Is that what Austin's saying here? Yep. Late to Thursday's team flight to Philly. I mean, he is like a bus. Did he get stuck in traffic?
So he comes back for one game and then already gets suspended.
I mean, I wonder where they were. I guess they were in New Orleans. I was going to say, if he was trying to get to the airport or something to get to Philly, I get it. That's always treacherous traffic. Man, fucking Zion. Probably in line at Mother's waiting for a Daybrie sandwich. Couldn't get out of line.
That's all the comments were. Like he's late getting food.
Yeah. Yeah. Too many hurricanes. I got nothing else for this game, so let's send it on its merry way. Let's talk schedule, which is the same thing that it always is. We're going to have Live Before Lock coming up next. They will take you from 6 until 7. And then at 7 o'clock, you get playback. Myself, and Greg will be here for an hour, which is fun because we've got 3 games starting at 7. We've got 2 games at 7:30. We've got Washington, Chicago at 8. We'll only have Brooklyn and Denver left to go by the time we leave. We'll be able to work through all the ownership, all the late swaps, all the news, everything you could possibly want will be going down on Playback today. That's playback.tv/Stokastic. And you guys can watch the games with us. We're going to have a game up the whole time. If you have League Pass, link your account. You see what we see. If you don't, we have 20 VIP passes. You can join us and see it as well. It's all free. If you can't see the game, it's still just a chat and you're still seeing us talk about it. So it'll be no different than this show. But we will all be watching a game, which you could join into. So let's have some fun, folks. Okay. Milwaukee Bucks, Orlando Magic. Bucks are 6.5-point favorites in Orlando, 212 total. This is the worst game on the slate for sure from a DFS perspective. Orlando and Milwaukee are both 9% owned in the aggregate. We're not even in sniffing distance of any other game, and we're miles away. Giannis is at 8%. Cole Anthony is at 6%. Those are the only guys that aren't 1 or 0 on DraftKings today. I'm not going to tell anybody to not click on Giannis's name. Like, he's not a priority to me, but he's Giannis. If you want to play Giannis, please play Giannis. I have 10%. I have 6% of Cole Anthony. I do not have a share of anybody else on the Bucks or the Magic. Are you seeing anything that I'm not seeing?
No, there's really not much to like here. I think Giannis is in play. Obviously, it's not the best matchup, but you're going to have to use your salary somewhere. We don't know if Jokic is playing. Cat's questionable. Like, you have a lot of the spend ups that are questionable. And with all the value, like, you have to spend your money somewhere. So, like, I think Giannis is in play for that reason. I don't think he stands out as a great point per dollar option, but like, I think he's playable. Everyone else in the Bucks, though, I think is like impossible to get to. Like, Dame's at like around 9K. I think it's really, really hard to go there. The center minutes right now with Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, that kind of seem to be riding the hot hand. Like, whoever's playing better, they'll extend a bit and close with. Not going to mess with that on this slate. Chris Middleton moved to the bench, only played about 20 minutes. I think you're probably expecting low 20s minutes from him. That's too expensive a price point. Obviously not going to mess with any of the value either. So it's basically just Giannis for me, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. There's just nothing there. You know, like, I wouldn't care if I had a Dame lineup, but he's just not going to look better than most people. And then on the Orlando side, I mean, it's even more bleak than that. Assuming Cole Anthony maintains that spot in the starting lineup, I think it's reasonable to have a couple shares. I don't know how you go to anything else here. You want to get weird on FanDuel and play Banchero at 8,200. I don't love it, but it's not a no-no. It's a no-no on DraftKings at 9,500.
Yeah. I can't get to Paolo. I assume he's going to be on a relatively strict limit. So definitely can't go there on DraftKings. I think Cole Anthony is probably your top option. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging about 60 passes made, 14.5 potential assists. That probably goes down a little bit, the playmaking with Paolo back, but still think Cole Anthony is reasonable. Played 37 minutes 2 games ago against the Knicks. So at low ownership, I think he's like a fine contrarian option. Don't really think it to anyone else in the Magic, though, with Paolo back. A lot of these guys are priced up as if Paolo was not playing. So, yeah, like, this is just a very unappealing game. Definitely the most unappealing game on the 7-game slate.
Yeah, I wish that Orlando was just healthy. I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but like, I'd love to see a healthy Orlando, healthy Milwaukee game. Like, both teams are solid. Like, it would be fun from a basketball perspective. From a DFS perspective, though, let's hope this one doesn't go to triple OT. I guess we're going to have to talk about this one slightly differently. And it even has more potential to be crazy. The New Orleans Pelicans were 5-point dogs in Philadelphia, 221 total. We are waiting on the news of DeJounte Murray, who is questionable. Brandon Ingram out, Trey Murphy out, Herb Jones likely out for the rest of the season. And as we learned about 5 minutes ago, Zion out today, suspended by the team. They were unowned. Fully unowned. This was Milwaukee again. This was Orlando again. But if DeJounte Murray ends up out, and now we have Zion out, the Pelicans are going to go from unowned to much more owned pretty damn quickly. Let's just go with the assumption Murray is in right now.
Okay.
Are we getting? I assume we're going to be getting to a $3,200 power forward center Jeremiah Robinson Earl as the priority from the Pelicans.
I think it'd be a good value. So, okay, what do we think the starting lineup is? Assuming DeJounte plays, it's going to be DeJounte, CJ, Misi. We think JRE is probably going to start.
That's usually that he filled in for Zion last time out, and it's not like they gained more people since then. So I would assume it's him and Javonte Green, in Boston, one of the two.
Okay.
Halliburton in. Okay. Turner in.
Okay. So, yeah, not much to add there for the Pacers. I think the two spend ups here for New Orleans, the two guards, DeJounte and CJ, both look pretty good. So on the season was Zion, Ingram, and Trey Murphy off the court. DeJounte Murray, 1.43 fantasy point per minute. CJ McCollum, 1.26. So those two are definitely going to be leading the way offensively. I think both stand out as pretty good options. Looks like we just got updated ownership of that Zion news, and still doesn't look like they're getting a ton of ownership. Looks like Boston and JRE right now getting the most love. So yeah, I think keep an eye on the starting lineup. Whoever are the two values that start, I think are going to be firmly in play. I think if it's Brandon Boston, he'd be my favorite value. I think he has the most upside of the group of Boston, JRE, and Javonte Green. Can you consider a guy like Jordan Hawkins? Maybe, but I think it's kind of hard to play a bench guy over Golden State value. Yeah. So I think main interest for me would be the spend up DeJounte and CJ, and then whoever are the two value starters, I think are going to be viable as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's JRE. I'm not as confident. That one I feel is pretty well set. They don't seem to love Javonte Green the same way. Now, I don't think it's crazy if Javonte Green is that starter at the 3. We saw him get the 29 minutes last time out. He actually led the team in minutes in that last game. Green, not exactly a great per minute guy. JRE, a little bit better than that. We are going to need that starting lineup. And if Murray ends up out, then we're going to start finding a little bit more value here. The game's kind of gross, but we have Boston at 20 something, JRE just shy at 20, Murray at around 13. This is going to be a thing that we're going to have to pay attention to. I'm happy. I'm sort of happy it's at 7:00. We're going to lock this in. We are going to be booking a lot of ownership at 7:00. Late swaps are going to become pretty gross if you need them, because you're going to have more than half your lineup set by the time we get to 7 p.m. lock.
It's gonna be really interesting too if we don't get the Jokic news before all the other games lock, because then you could be in a scenario where you have a lot of salary, you have Jokic and he gets rolled out and you have to eat 3,000 or something. So that could lower the ownership on Jokic if we don't get confirmation of him playing before all these other games start.
He's in 68% of my lineups right now.
Yeah, so what would you do in a scenario like that if you don't know for sure if he's playing? Are you gonna get off some of Jokic?
I'll drink bleach. Fucking with my day ends if that comes in at 8:30. I'm not gonna win shit.
Yeah,
there's nobody to turn that into. Nick Claxton, come on down, brother. That's the only option. Hopefully he'd be in the utility spot, but even that wouldn't matter.
Yeah, but if you don't, are you gonna get off some of Jokic before some of these games? If you don't get the news, let's just say, and you have the Washington Chicago game and the Denver Brooklyn game, would you try to get off some of Jokic and then get up to some Vooch and kind of spread it out a little bit more?
Based on where the line is right now, no. Okay. I would let it rip. Okay. I think the more likely, and I'm not even saying this to be funny, I think the more likely scenario would be as these late swaps happen, I get more and more, not less and less.
Okay.
And if I die, I die. But that's the way it's pacing now. I got to take Zion out and everything now. This might redistribute. I could end up with Towns at some point in time. But yeah, I don't know. If Trace Jackson Davis gets ruled out, I don't know what happens to my center ownership too, because if I'm going to be getting Post and Looney everywhere, the good news is Jokic is probably going to be in my utility almost exclusively, given all the value at center early. Like Looney's going to be in the center, or not Looney. Trace Jackson-Davis will likely be in the center spot a lot. Looney could potentially be in the center spot a lot. That's going to help for flexibility wise, because at least if Jokic is in the utility, which is the only other spot he can be in, I can swap to like more functional human beings than just DeAndre Jordan.
I think, and so I remember they said, so he missed the game on Tuesday. That was the first game he missed with the illness. They said he was a little sick the day before too. So that was Monday. Today's Friday. Like, I lean that he plays just because it's been like a long time enough where I think that he could probably play,
Yeah. DeJounte Murray in, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming he is. Like, my line is pretty close. If he were out, it would move like 5 points and it would be at least noticeable in my data. So I'm going to play it like he's in, but he could just sit. I mean, they could look at this game like, you know what? Brooklyn blows.
Right. They don't need him for sure.
No. I mean, like the good news, like when it comes to sick, it's not like you could get extra sick by playing for it. It's not like a sprained ankle or something where you can't get you can't get the flu and COVID because of it or something, So I'm a little less worried about it. It seems like he's going to be playing. I'm sure he won't if I have a ton of them. I know how life works. But it's Jokic. Like, I assume if he can play, he wants to play. He doesn't strike me as the guy that's like, you know what, I'm going to hang back in the hotel room today and play Call of Duty.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So we do have another team to talk about from an ownership perspective. That's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. No Joel Embiid. Now, he is a guy that I would expect to stay back and play Call of Duty. No Andre Drummond, no Joel Embiid, no Kyle Lowry, no KJ Martin, Jared McCain out for the year now. Paul George is probable, though. 20% ownership to Maxey, around 10 for Oubre, 50 for Paul George, and around 15 for Yabu. Let's just start with the Paul George ownership. That feels disproportionately high to me.
Yeah, that feels a little high to me too. Like if you're looking at the two spend ups of the 76ers, for me, I'd rather get to a 20% owned Tyrese Maxey with there being a lot of value and possibly even more value on the slate than a $7,500 Paul George. So I'm not saying Paul George is a bad play. Obviously, with Joel Embiid out, more usage, and those two are going to be leading the way offensively. But I mean, if you just look at like the two spend ups for me, I'd rather get to Maxey at about a third of the ownership as Paul George.
I'm with you there. Like, I think Maxey and George, if I don't look at ownership, look pretty similar to each other relative to salary. Like, I like the flexibility of George. The price is nice. The positionality is good, but I have them with basically the same optimal rates and boom rates as each other to see what, and like, I get it. George is going to be a little bit more owned. He's way easier to put in different structures of lineups. And the position will help quite a bit, but 50+% seems insane to me. I got 2% of him on my first run, which I don't like. That's terrifying. I don't think that I have him projected all that wrong, but it's going to make me want to take a look at it. I like Oubre more than anybody else here at 12% ownership, shooting guard eligible, 5,700, usually a tough position to fill. We certainly have a billion center options at this point. We're not going to talk a ton about shooting guards other than just random Warriors dudes. So I lean towards Oubre the most. I have no problem getting some Yabu, and I'd like to have a bit more of Maxey and George, but this Philly side of the game is really weird to me from a public ownership perspective.
Yeah, I like the Oubre shout, only about 10% owned. He's going to play big minutes. The rebounding numbers have been very solid for Kelly Oubre as well. So, yeah, I think he's going a little bit under-owned. Yabusele, I think the only really other guy that's playable for Philadelphia. With both Embiid and Drummond out, he's going to start at the 5. He played 34 minutes last time out. You had Bono play the backup 5. So, yeah, I think like those two are totally reasonable options in the 5K range in Oubre and in Yabusele. Don't really think you can get to anyone else. Like Caleb Martin, I don't think is playable. 5'2", I'd just rather get to Oubre or Yabusele for a little bit more. And then there's just no way I'm going to touch any of the value. But yeah, I think right now for Philly, Maxey would be my favorite play. I think he's just going under-owned with all the value that we have.
I'm with you. I'd like to get more Maxey. I'm curious what's blocking me because I haven't really looked ahead. I mean, I know obviously I have 2x the field of Jokic. That's probably not helping. I'm over the field on Shea right now. That makes sense. Like, with that much 12-3 Jokic and 10-4 Shea, I'm kind of just blocking myself out of a $9,400 maxi. And if I'm getting more Shea than maxi, I'm not super mad, but I could very easily drop a little bit of Shea, pick up a little bit of maxi, and feel better. The George ownership, I'm fascinated by. That's going to be, I'm going to have to do a deep dive on him after the deeper dive.
We just got the Warriors starting lineup, by the way. So Jackson Davis is in, obviously, because he's starting. So it's Schroeder, Hield, Waters, Slow-Mo, and Jackson Davis.
Nailed it. Ayo. Whew.
Well, I feel a lot better about Kyle Anderson's minutes now that he's starting.
I feel worse. Fuck Steve Kerr, man. Oh, apparently Zion has also been late for multiple practices.
Wow. I guess that's not super surprising, though.
What a total jerk off. Seriously. Life is easy, brother. Life is easy. These guys want to pay you $200 million over the course of 5 years to just, like, fucking show up on time. I'll never understand it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I get it. Jobs suck, but not that one. I'm very nervous about projecting the Warriors when I get off of this call, too, or this show. Anyway, sign up at Stokastic. That's what I wanted to say. Tools, free, month, link, description of this video. If you sign up through one of our partners, either on the Pick'em side or the Sportsbook side, they're going to offer you something as well. Now, when you click the link in the description, there's going to be a giant list of all of the sites that you could use. Make your deposit there. Whatever that deposit setup is for them, that's what you'll need to follow. They're going to give you either bonus bets or a deposit bonus. Something is going to end up in your pocket as a bonus from them. You're going to give us absolutely nothing. $0. You're going to get our core package of Sims, projections, ownership, the Sims tools, premium Discord. It's an incredible deal. I assume no matter which state you live in, you have the option of sports betting or pick'em sites. And if you haven't signed up at one of those sites yet, that can get you in the door for our DFS package. And right now, I've said it on all the shows this week, it's the perfect time to get in for the NBA. This is the best time of the year for the NBA. We're going full steam ahead into the All-Star break in the middle of February. The next 30 days are primarily NBA days. You get your NFL playoffs on the weekends, but right now, it's just NBA every day, and the slates are awesome. Come in, check it out, and you'll be ready to go. Pick up a win. You can just hang out with us for the rest of the year. Wouldn't that be fun? So click that link, follow the instructions on the top of the page, sign up now. Moses Moody, available to play, by the way. That would have been a real monkey wrench. Sacramento Kings, 12-point dogs in Boston, 227 total, and those Kings are going to be without De'Aaron Fox today, and they've been without him for the past 3 games. There is a little bit of ownership coming into Sacramento, but not too much. Just north of 10 on Monk, just north of 20 on Sabonis, and then about 7 to Keon Ellis. I like Keegan Murray at 4,700, power forward eligible, currently projected for 3% ownership. He has to look a little bit better with no Fox. You know, the minutes should be there. They're really consolidating this rotation now. You know, a little bit of Monk, a little bit of Sabonis, a little bit of Ellis. Nobody that I want to go crazy for. And obviously, since I have so much Jokic, I'm not getting to as much of Domantas Sabonis, who I do find pretty interesting on a day like today. But I think Keegan Murray's my dude here.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting team for tournaments. Really, Sabonis and Monk, the only guys getting any love. With De'Aaron Fox off the court this year, you actually have DeMar DeRozan leading the team in usage, 28% usage rate. He's getting no ownership right now, 7.1K. Like, I think he's at least a reasonable pivot off of chalk Paul George. So I'm a little more interested in DeMar DeRozan than 1%. Sabonis, probably your easiest guy to get to, just with all the value that we have in the slate. You got to use your salary somewhere. I think if the Kings keep this game competitive, you probably need a pretty big game from Sabonis. He is a 1.41 fantasy point per minute player on the year with Fox off the court. So He stands out as a solid option. Malik Monk's going to have to do a lot more ball handling with De'Aaron Fox out. 31.4% assist percentage with Fox off the court. So I think any of like the main Kings are solid tournament options. You mentioned Keegan Murray too. I think he's going a little bit under-owned at about 2%. Keon Ellis on a normal slate, I have a lot more interest in. But again, I think it's kind of hard to like play or prioritize him at least over the Warriors value. But yeah, like if you think Sacramento can keep getting competitive, I think like Sabonis, Monk, DeRozan, all interesting plays.
We're on the same page there. Our boy 1-2 sent the super chat. Said Jordan Klein is the Zion of Stokastic, overhyped bum. He's not the producer today, so that's just taking like a real unnecessary shot at somebody that doesn't even see it. just mean. This is mean. He's not even here to defend himself. Sorry, Jordan. No, you know what? We're gonna have some. It won't be funny. I had something there, but I can't say it. It wouldn't be funny. I'll tell
Jordan catching a stray and he's not even producing.
Yeah. Jordan's got be nice to Jordan. Let's talk Boston. They're full strength. We don't have a ton of full strength Boston games lately. 10% ownership to Jason Tatum, 7 to Kristaps Porzingis. Nobody else has more than 1. I got a little bit over the field on Tatum. I'm certainly happy to get to him. It's not like I'm worried about the Sacramento defense. It's just really hard to sift through Boston and prioritize someone because they could beat the shit out of Sacramento and they could get the big day out of just about anybody. Yeah,
this is a tough team to prioritize when they are fully healthy. So 2 games ago, we actually saw them at full health. Starters all played decent minutes. Porzingis was in a little bit of foul trouble. He played 29 minutes. Everyone else was 30 plus. Not a surprise there. Just wanted to mention it. Like Pritchard in that game only played 10 minutes. Last game with Derek White out, he only played 19. So the minutes have ticked down a bit on him when this team has been fully healthy. Tatum, Porzingis, really the only guys getting any ownership, about 10% to Tatum, 5% to Porzingis. I think both those guys are solid contrarian options. If Sacramento does keep staying competitive, you should see high 30s minutes from Tatum, probably low to mid 30s from Porzingis. Jaylen Brown is getting basically no ownership. For me, I'd probably rather get up to Tatum for a little bit more. And then I don't think it's necessary to get to Drew Holiday or Derek White or Al Horford on this slate. So I think the top 2 are viable contrarian plays in Porzingis and in Tatum.
I would like to have more of it. It just makes sense to me, but there's just no super justifiable reason. There's too many other really awesome spots today. So I'm sure this game goes to OT and there's a lot of really interesting options. Ooh, gross. Oh, we got another super chat. Said no Jordan and everything is running seamlessly. I mean, we got a pro behind the scenes today. Shout out to Jacob. I mean, Jordan, he does what he can. But we got an actual pro at this behind the scenes today. So it should be running quite well. And now, if you need Jordan to be around at 6 o'clock in the morning, we might be shit out of luck. But otherwise, Jordan gets the job done. Let's talk about the best possible game we've got today from a real basketball perspective. Oklahoma City Thunder, 4-point favorites in New York, 227 total. I'm starting to get a little nervous about the status of Karl Anthony Towns for this one, but that's a conversation for a different point of this show. We've got 25% ownership coming into Shea, and then around 10 for Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Cason Wallace. They are still missing Alex Caruso. They're still missing AJ Mitchell. I got 40% of Shea, which is clearly enough salary to get to him. And I'm about 10 to 15 on Dort, Hartenstein, and Wallace. The only guy that I'm light on is Jalen Williams. But I'm very happy to get to the Oklahoma City Thunder today. Even in a pace down spot, I like this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. Shea, I think, is definitely the easiest guy to get to, 10.4K. The Thunder, over the last few games, are running a bit of a tighter rotation, 9-man rotation, back-to-back games, starters minutes a little more condensed. So, with there being so much value in the slate, I do think Shea stands out as one of the better spend-ups. So, I think he looks really good. J-Dub and Hartenstein, both around 10%, I think are reasonable contrarian options. J-Dub should play mid-30s minutes, Hartenstein low to mid-30s. I have no issues with either of those guys. I think the value is a little bit tougher for me to get to guys like Dort and Cason Wallace. Just with the Warriors value that we have already, I think it's like kind of hard for me to play those guys over the Warriors. But I think any of the main guys, SGA, J-Dub, and Hartenstein are in play. And I think Shea probably the easiest to get to.
Allred, I answered your question in chat. I guess I should have answered this super chat live, but it's very easy. Said, if a blowout, how much Hauser should I take on DraftKings? 0. There is no justifiable reason to take Hauser. Now, I know that now that I say that, the dude's going to make 10 threes today. There is absolutely no justifiable reason to take Sam Hauser today.
Yeah, you can't play Hauser at all.
There's 15 dudes that are going to play twice as many minutes as Sam Hauser on paper already. It's so hard to do that. But we know what happens now that I say that. So everybody watching, you know how to handle this. But there's a 0% chance I would have Sam Hauser today. So Knicks. Is Towns playing? It feels like he's not. 4-point favorites in New York. That feels like too much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an OKC guy. That's a big line if they're at full strength. Is he playing?
It's OKC -4. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I have it at 1.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit high now that I think about it.
And I have some Towns.
Yeah.
Let's say this. If Towns is in, do you like anybody besides Towns? I have no problem getting Bridges, Harder, Anunoby, or Brunson, but I don't really have them.
I think it would be hard for me to feel great about any of those guys. Like, obviously, you can land on them as a contrarian piece, but definitely, like, no one stands out looking at their salaries. Cat, definitely the easiest guy to get to. I hope Cat plays. I don't really want to deal with, the Jericho Sims, Precious Achua, center minutes. But, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play, I think the first guy that I would look to would be an 8.9K Jalen Brunson in that scenario.
Likewise. Brunson would look quite good. I assume I would be getting a bit of Bridges, Hart, and Anunoby at that point. Bridges and Hart are going to play 40 minutes as long as this one's competitive and potentially more in a spot like this. But, yeah, I don't want to. I mean, I can't imagine we're going to get to, like, Sims in any way. Achua 4,400, power forward center. Like, we're going to have a lot of ownership already soaked up. I doubt we'd be getting to a ton of these Knicks dudes at that point. It's really just going to become getting off of because Towns is projected for 20% ownership right now. Today would be the day where you're just getting back off of Towns and likely getting to some combination of Isaiah Hartenstein, Vooch, Jokic, Nick Claxton, I guess. But I don't know. I'm a little nervous about that line right now.
Yeah. And yeah, the value centers, like if Cat doesn't play, I agree. I think it's just hard to go there. Like 2 games ago that Cat missed, you actually had like Sims start. He barely played, and then Achua started the second half. He ended up playing close to 30 minutes. That was one of the first games that Precious Achua played this season. But last time out, they actually ran Sims a lot more. Sims is not a good point per minute player. With the value they have Golden State, even if Cat gets rolled out, I still think it'd be hard to get to those 2 cheap centers.
Yeah. Keep your eye. This is very important news right now, especially if it happens to come out in the next hour and 15 minutes. That will really change the scope of the way the pay-ups look. It will change the way that people get to Nikola Jokic potentially. I think Jason, like if Towns ends up out, I think Jason Tatum becomes slightly more interesting just because that's one less pay-up option getting some ownership. We're going to need it. But I do think Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, and Brunson are all a tad under-owned as of right now. And I wouldn't be mad to get a little bit more. I think there's a little bit of leverage to be had of grabbing some Knicks. Because, like, what if the Knicks just win? Somebody here is going to have valid fantasy scores in that point. It's not like they're going to do it because everybody played 32 minutes. They're going to do it because they probably all played 40.
Yep. That's tips for you.
It really is, man. A crazy team. Crazy team. I got one quick thing to talk about. One, I need you guys to hit the like button. Towns and McBride are game time decisions, so they're still questionable. No change whatsoever to their status. We got a little bit of an odds shopper promo going on. If you want to get in, it's not going to last very long. 59% off an odds shopper subscription. The promo code EV59, Super Bowl. Guys, that's what it's for. You get 59% off. If you're in a legal betting state or if you're playing on the pick'em sites, take a market-based approach to beating the books. OddsShopper's awesome. The portfolio EV tool is amazing. You could deep dive into our past results over the last 2 years and find the spots that work best for you. But generally speaking, take whatever it shows as a recommendation, and it's going to go pretty well for you. Whether it's parlay builders, we're giving you projected odds, we're giving you the edge on each bet, recommended bet sizes, mass betting. If you have got, if there's 10 recommended bets on, let's say, DraftKings, you could click a button, it'll load them all straight to your card. Whatever you're looking for on the sports betting side, this is the way to do it. And you can go check out something like Greg Ehrenberg's Bankroll Challenge, which is up like $500 or $600 since the beginning of the NBA season. He started with 100 and he's turned it into much, much more. Even with a relatively large downswing over the past week or two, he's still absolutely killing it. And all he did was start with 100 bones. So if you want to come in, it's a pretty great time to do it. EV59 Super Bowl licks. Yeah, I did it. Wizards and Bulls. Now, on paper, this one looks like a ridiculous DFS game. 242 total is 15 points higher than any other game. I have the pace at 104.5. That's 8 possessions faster than any other game. It's crazy. But there's not really anything here that's like super interesting. Now, if Jordan Poole and Alex Sarr end up out, maybe we're looking at Washington slightly differently. But right now, the most owned guy for the Wizards is 7% to Kuzma. Do you want to do anything here with the Wizards if they're at full strength? Because the game environment is amazing, but the pricing isn't.
Yeah, I think if this team is fully healthy, it's kind of hard to feel great about anyone. I mean, I would have a little bit interest in Jordan Poole, assuming he's not on a limit. He's currently projected about 2% ownership. I think if the game stays competitive, you could definitely see like 35 minutes from Poole. So, like, I think he would be in play as contrarian option. But that would basically be it, I think. Would you have any interest in this team if they're at full health?
I randomly got 16% of Bub Carrington. I mean, part of me wants to get like a decent chunk of them just for more swappability. But like when you start looking at these guys, like why would I want to play properly priced Bilal Coulibaly when I could play all of the Warriors? Or like, if Sarr is in, is he okay at 6,100? Sure. Is Kuzma okay at 6,400? Yeah, but like, is he? I want to like these guys, but if they're all at full strength, they're just overpriced.
Yeah, I think things will get a little more interesting if you get both those guys out again. In that game that both Sarr and Poole missed, we had JV start at the 5. Usage was basically dominated from 3 guys like JV, Kuzma, and then Jared Butler off the bench, who smashed in 20 minutes. But if you get like Sarr out and JV starting, I think he'd be a pretty interesting option. He actually didn't close. They closed with Sean Holmes. But yeah, I think he would be in play. And then I think like Kuzma would be in play if Jordan Poole doesn't play. Again, he had a 32% usage rate last game in 31 minutes. So I think those would probably be the 2 guys I would look to first if you get both Sarr and Jordan Poole out.
Yeah, if we lose them both, then you're paying a little bit closer attention to Jared Butler, and you're probably firing up a little bit of Joe Val, but at the same time, like we're not short center value right now. So I don't. And if he's not going to close because they're getting their ass kicked when he's out on the floor. I mean, they got the shit kicked out of them when he was out there. He was okay. I mean, he was playing like he was Angel Reese. It was just offensive rebound for himself. Worked out well for fantasy purposes. Didn't work out well for the Wizards themselves, although I'm sure they won a loss every time. But we need that news. It is one of the few potential late swap spots that we do have in that 8 o'clock game, because on the Bulls side, everybody that's normally available is still no Dosunmu, but otherwise we're getting the same Bulls we've had for a while. 20% ownership coming into Zach LaVine, 10 to White, Vooch, and Giddey, and then 5 for Patrick Williams and Lonzo. I'm a little bit over on Zach LaVine. I'm a little bit over on Josh Giddey right now, and I've got some shares of Williams and Vooch and White. I kind of like the Chicago side because the Wizards suck.
Yeah, great matchup. So I like the Bulls here as a contrarian team. I think any of the 4 like spend ups, Vooch, LaVine, Giddey, and Kobe White are viable. I don't know if Levine should be 2x the ownership of White, Giddey, and Vooch. I think they're all pretty similar plays for me. So I think any of those 4 guys are fine guys you can mix in as contrarian plays. Patrick Williams, in the 2 most recent games that have stayed competitive for Chicago, has played 34 and 35 minutes. Lonzo Ball, they said he's going to be limited to about 24 minutes going forward, according to Billy Donovan. Again, though, with the Golden State value, kind of tougher to prioritize those guys. So mainly looking at the top guys, Vooch, Levine, Giddey, and Kobe White. And with Levine being 2x the ownership of basically everyone else, I think I would give the edge to the other 3, factoring in ownership, because I think they're all pretty similar point per dollar plays.
I never thought I would have to do this, but to whoever Josh Englewoman is in chat, those are terrible stats. No one defends threes. The data you should be looking at is attempts, not percentage. Percentage, meaningless. Attempts, meaningful. Let's just put that there. Didn't think I'd have to address a knockoff version of me in chat, but here we are. But yeah, field goal percentage from 3 couldn't be more meaningless. Ready to close this one out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Brooklyn Nets, 14.5-point dogs. That is 2 touchdown underdogs in Denver, taking a 10-man squad of randos into elevation. Enjoy it. For a team that has like all of these random idiots, they're kind of overpriced. The most owned guy for Brooklyn right now is 4% to Noah Clowney. Everybody else is below that. I have 10% of Zaire Williams and 14% of Noah Clowney, but Brooklyn looks downright awful here.
Yeah, this team's been tilting me too. I've lost a lot of money recently on them. When they had the 8-man rotation, I played, Zaire and Keon Johnson, and it just went horribly, horribly wrong. Now they have 10 guys available. Ben Simmons, I think, will probably be somewhat limited. He's missed. He's been out for like 10 days now, so I don't think he's going to come back and play like 30 minutes of the game stays competitive. So like he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton, but I don't think it's really necessary to go to him. Like if you want to take shots on some of these guys in tournaments, you can, like Zaire or Keon or Clowney, as you mentioned, but nothing I feel great about. Day'Ron Sharp on a slate where if we didn't have a lot of value, I think would be a solid option. He has been playing. He's played a little bit alongside Claxton when he's been healthy. Don't know if he'll do that today with 10 guys available. But yeah, I mean, this is gross. They're probably going to get blown out, assuming that Jokic plays.
They might get blown out, assuming he doesn't.
Yeah, true.
I mean, this is pretty gnarly. Anytime you're playing a Woman and Reese Beekman, I can't imagine life's going great.
Definitely not.
And Keon Johnson plays a lot. He sucks.
I've lost a lot of money.
Tyrese Martin is the best offensive player in plus minus on this team, and that's negative 0.7. I mean, they're dreadful. They're dreadful. Oy. Oh. But Denver's not. If Jokic plays. Jokic, 40% owned on DraftKings, 20 on FanDuel. Single digits to everybody else. I've already said it. I've got a ton of Jokic. My expectation he's playing. I'm happy to have him. I got a little bit of Murray, Porter, and Westbrook, though, and I'm kind of happy to have as much of Denver as I can pre-lock. If that means that I'm swapping off of it at 7:30 and at 8 o'clock, that's okay. But it gives me more options if I need them, and by all accounts, they should have no struggles here with Brooklyn. What are you doing here? At least, what's your plan heading into lock?
Yeah, so plan is, I think, to get a good amount of Jokic. I think he's, assuming he plays, and I don't think he'll be limited, I think he's your best bend up. So yeah, I think Jokic looks great. Currently projected for about 40% ownership. So even if the game, even if they blow out Brooklyn, he could put up a score where he's still needed on the slate. So yeah, I think Jokic looks great. I do still think that some of the other main pieces are in play, assuming that Jokic plays, like Jamal Murray, Westbrook, Michael Porter Jr. Price points haven't really moved on those guys. I think they're all reasonable contrarian plays. In competitive game, those guys should play probably mid-30s minutes or so. So any of those guys I think are viable. Not really going to get to the value here for Denver. If Jokic gets ruled out, then you'd probably get DeAndre Jordan, Saric splitting the center position. And then obviously, bumping usage to Murray, Westbrook, and MPJ would look a lot better. But as we talked about, like we both think that Jokic will play tonight. So he's your top option. If you want to mix in some Murray, Westbrook, and MPJ, I think that's totally fine.
AJ Mitchell underwent a toe procedure to miss at least 10 to 12 weeks. Come on down, Sam Presti. It's time. Cash in some of these chips and go get somebody, baby. Make this team even better. Make this team even better. I love it. Go get something crazy. Do it. You got a fucking 10,000 picks over the next 7 years. Cash it in and go get this chip, baby. DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube, DK DFS, or on Twitter, DK__DFS.
Friday, NBA Deeper Dive is in the books, which means Live Before Lock is up right now. Greg, Eric, what's going on, boys? How are you guys?
There we go. Now I'm in here.
Yes, you are.
Yo.
And now you
Eric,
are.
go join Playback too before we forget. Go jump into Playback there. Any plans for the weekend, Josh, DK?
Not much. No, just taking it easy. Watch some football.
All right. Any NFL bets you got your eye on, DK, before you head out?
I actually haven't looked at NFL stuff yet, just because with the day-to-day for NBA. I'll probably start looking at that stuff tonight. But yeah, no bets for me yet.
All right. Josh hanging out with the pup?
I will be dropping the wife off at the airport tomorrow at like 5 a.m. She will be gone until Thursday. Then she leaves again on Friday. So tomorrow is going to be a very, very healthy amount of fun things that make me want to sit on the couch and all of the fun foods that come with that. And then I will watch a little bit of the UFC.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just got a PS5, so I am going to be partaking a lot of the same activities as you, but playing my PlayStation afterwards.
What are you going to be playing? Maybe we can play with each other.
So I got like 20 games or so. So I'm just going to try out different ones, see what I like. First one I want to play, though, is Astrobot.
Okay. Wait, did you like buy this off of somebody, or you just went in like, I'm buying 20 games, fuck it?
No, it was because of DraftKings, for like the DraftKings reward stuff. They gave out the gift cards where you got like the half price off thing. So I ended up getting $2,000 in gift cards to GameStop, and then it was like, what do I do with these?
You should have bought GameStop stock. That would have been the play. But
I don't think they allow those purchases in gift cards.
No. All right. Maybe we'll play something.
All right. What games do you play? And then I'll kick you guys out of here.
I just started playing Last of Us. I hadn't played that before.
Best.
I hate it.
Oh, fuck you. It's so good.
It's a terrible game.
The Last of Us is an awesome game. Okay, the gameplay, I haven't played it for a long time. I love the story of it back in the day. I didn't play
Great
part
story.
2, but
Great story. It's a boring game because it's just you do the same thing over and over on the same path. I like a little bit more like open world freedom.
That happened with Assassin's Creed with me. I loved Assassin's Creed until I didn't, but totally get it.
But I'm on the hunt now for something a little bit better. Greg, do you entertain a lot by any chance?
Like on occasion, but not really.
So the Jackbox games, they're all sorts of like party games. Highly recommended if you ever have people at the house. Everybody uses their phone as like they could like log into a website and use it as like their controller essentially. It'll be like trivia and random bullshit like that, but fun games if you ever have people over.
Gotcha. So nobody that I'm friends with would play video games though. So
it's not like a video, like it's. I'll have to explain it to you or show it to you. They're wildly different. It's not like a video game in any way. It'd be like going to like the most entertaining bar trivia for that particular game. Or maybe like you have to like draw shit on your screen and then people have to do random shit with it. It could be like more Pictionary style. There's wild shit. It's fun.
All right.
Trust
me. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more on Playback. DK, Josh, get out of here. Get out of here.
DK.
Bye. Have a good weekend, guys. Eric, jump into Playback.
I am. I thought I was. Oh, I need to join stage. Not. There we are. That was easy.
All right. So let's start. Here's what the people are here for. They want to hear us talk about tonight's NBA DFS slate. And we've had a lot of slates with a lot of injury news. There is a decent amount of players on the injury report. I don't know how much this is ultimately going to end up being impactful, though, Eric. Jokic is questionable. I think he plays. Cat is questionable. I think he plays. Jordan Poole is questionable. I'm actually really not sure on him, but the Wizards are also kind of priced in a
Alexander
way.
Sarr. I mean, I have no idea about Sarr either.
Yeah. So Poole is questionable. Sarr is questionable. I don't really know if one of them is ruled out. Sarr would actually be the more impactful one, even though Poole has a bigger role in the team, just because we could see another Valanciunas start, who I played a bunch of Valanciunas the other day. I watched the game. He was absolute dog shit, but it didn't matter. He scored well for fantasy because Josh and I were actually messaging about it during the game, but literally could not make a layup. And it was absolutely to his benefit for DFS because I think he had like 9 offensive rebounds or something ridiculous. So if Sarr is out, then you get another start for Valanciunas. Miles McBride is questionable. That doesn't really matter. But between the studs, Cat and Nikola Jokic, do you think these guys both play, or do you think there's a good chance one of them sits?
I think there's a better chance than you do that Jokic sits. Then it sounds like Josh heard the last 2 minutes of the show. He said something about Jokic being in. I don't know what to make of it. It's an illness. And also they're 14-point favorites against Brooklyn. They just won a pretty, out of nowhere game against the Clippers. I had the Clippers minus 115 on the money line. It closes at minus 230. So why wouldn't they lose by infinity? That was just kind of the way that rolled. But I don't know what to make of it. There was no shoot around for Denver today. And that's kind of made it a little frustrating to figure out. And Karl Anthony Towns, Miles McBride, I have no idea. Like, we just saw him get back into the mix. So I think it's more likely than not that he's going to be in, considering that he just played against Toronto. But I don't know for certain. Like, I think it's kind of a tough injury landscape today. I'm only playing 25 lineups today as a result, because I'm not sold on exactly what happens. And obviously late swap needs to be a major component of it. Are you pretty certain that Jokic plays? Because again, I have no idea what to make of an illness when you're a 14-point favorite right now.
Yeah, so that is one part of this too, is they might just say, hey, we don't need Jokic to. So my assumption is just it's been almost like a week now.
It's 2 games.
Yeah, but I'm saying like since we first found out he was sick. Because So the other day, while he got downgraded to questionable, which you and I took to mean that he wasn't going to play, he had been sick since the day before and was on the injury report. He was just listed as probable, and then he started to feel worse. So it seems like he got sick like a little bit less than a week ago. So that's why I'm just kind of putting it together and thinking like, oh, he's probably feeling well enough to play now. The caveat being, like you said, they're massive favorites against the Nets. They're going to be big favorites whether Jokic plays or not. Maybe they just say, hey, let's just give him the extra day off because we don't need him today. But I think he should be ready to go. That's why I think he's more likely than not to play.
Fake news in the chat is Paul George out. I don't see that is true.
Yeah, it was nothing I saw.
So you're going to get hidden on this channel. I will. I'll bring you back if you're not a lying piece of shit. But something tells me you're a lying piece of shit. So you're going to get banished for the time being. We'll find out. Otherwise, I'm going to have to apologize. But right now, you got sent to the Shadow Realm. That's how it works.
So Paul George, who, by the way, has been listed as probable on the injury report all day.
All day.
Unless there's something crazy that ends up happening, then Paul George looks like he should be fine to play today. It's really the only. So there's like 2 things we don't like in the YouTube chat. In general, you guys could yell at us, do whatever you want. I don't really care about that. But if you're just like outwardly obnoxious, like just being racist in the chat or whatever, that'll get you booted. Or if you just come in and make up news for no reasons, anything else, you do whatever. Share your opinions. I don't really care. But no reason to come in and just, make up stuff. So somebody in chat, this could be the case. People are saying that they think he was asking if Paul George. No, he wasn't. He sent 2 messages. He wasn't asking us if Paul George is playing.
Paul George out. George is not playing. Yeah. And those are lies.
No.
Don't
he's just making
lie in the YouTube chat. Here's the thing. I like to think that I am a man who, at the same time that I have my idiosyncrasies, at the same time that I am somebody who likes to be high-wired, high-strung, and enjoy himself, just with the personality that I have, that, you know what, there are times that I understand where you're coming from, but if you outwardly lie in the chat, you're going to get the ban hammer. That is just literally what it is. Would you like to see my hammer? Here it is, Josh Engleman style.
Oh, I thought we were going to get a show there. That was a little bit disappointing.
No, I was done after that.
So, yeah, we will see what ends up happening with the other news. But for the real news, we're waiting on most impactful. Jokic and Cat are both questionable. Jordan Poole, Alex Sarr, both questionable for the Washington Wizards. And now we've got some other super chats here. And let's see, one from SC. He's asking, would Denver be minus 14 if Jokic was in play? So there's kind of like this misconception that books just know who's going to be in or out, and therefore that's what they set the lines are. But it's ultimately they're taking market data based on what bets they're getting, who those people are betting, and that's what helps them balance the line after it comes out. They don't have any kind of information that we don't have. So it could be an indication of what the line is to where the market is going, but that doesn't definitively mean players are in or out in any kind of specific way. To SC's question, would Denver be minus 14 if he wasn't playing? If Jokic is ruled out, then the line's probably going to be like minus 11 or minus 12.
Yeah, I can actually tell you exactly what I have it for, because again, this is the fun part about what I do the night before, where I get to do simulations and I get to do all the fun stuff behind the scenes that I got taught how to do from all of our genius dev guys. But I have this line at 11.2 without Jokic, and with Jokic in, I have it at 15 and change. So we're talking, it's closer towards him being in based on what the market is saying right now. There would be more value to be betting 14.5 with Brooklyn right now than there would be to lay 13.5, which is what I'm seeing at Hard Rock. But that being said, I don't think I would want either right now, considering the 14.5 is at minus 114. And that adds a couple of percentage points. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be betting this no matter what.
All right, so let's actually start getting into the slate. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a new sale that has started that's going on right now with the NFL playoffs starting up. If you guys want access to our Odd Shopper portfolio EV tools, it is 59% off because do you know what Super Bowl it is this year, Eric?
No.
Super Bowl 59. So since it's Super Bowl 59, if you guys sign up for our portfolio EV tools with the promo code EV59, you get yourself 59% off. So go check that out. Link down below in the YouTube description box. Get yourself access to our portfolio EV tools. It really makes betting simple. You don't have to have any of your own knowledge. You really could just build portfolios and do nothing but place the bets that are on the site. And over time, you're going to be quite profitable. Stick with it. Trust the process. Let's start looking at the slate, as I said here, Eric. And first, let's look at the highest owned players on the slate and just what we make of it. We'll look at it for DraftKings as well as FanDuel. I'm going to refresh to make sure I'm looking at the most recent ownership, which we've got one from 1 minute ago, by the way, if you wanted to give it a refresh. There's a brand new ownership update that just came through. Here's the chalk. Here's the chalk. The Golden State Warriors. Yeah. Buddy Hield. We have projected for 65% ownership. Kyle Anderson. I'm so annoyed with the Kyle Anderson game from before where he scored it was 3 fantasy points per minute, but they hardly gave him any playing time. So, at the end of the day, he was nearly min priced and he scored like 13 fantasy points. It wasn't the end of the world, but I was definitely disappointed with the outcome relative to his points per minute rate. So we got Kyle Anderson, 53% owned. Paul George, 50% owned. Dennis Schroeder, 46.6% owned. Then we got the 2 pay-up options here, Jokic and SGA, 36 and 38% owned. Lindy Waters, 33% owned. That's the chalk. So I want to ask you this first, Eric. Of all of these chalk players that we have, are there any ones that you are looking to maybe get away from?
Get away from, lower than the field, but I don't think any of them are going to be, out of 25 lineups, I doubt that I don't have shares of everybody there. I think the ones that make me the most uncomfortable are obviously the Golden State guys where, you don't know what is going to happen off the bench here with Steve Kerr. And somebody decided to tell me that Steve Kerr and his 90-year-old grandmother had to leave the house that he grew up in and that he wasn't coaching correctly in the back of his mind yesterday and that he wasn't aware of minutes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Obviously, I feel terrible for Steve Kerr and that happened to his family. But trying to understand Steve Kerr's coaching rotations and understand exactly what he's trying to do is basically like trying to understand an insane person. You're not going to do it. You have to just simply observe them. And so we're observing Steve Kerr and what he does. And I think it is a foregone conclusion that something random is going to happen. I think what really gets uncomfortable is Moses Moody is back today. And if Moses Moody wasn't back today, I'd feel so much better about just jamming Waters and Hield and Anderson, considering they're all starting. But Moses Moody is back. And if they're not getting offense early in a game that they're double-digit dogs in, they're going to bring Moody out there alongside a Buddy Hield and just try to out 3-point them, I think. So that's my observation of what I think Steve Kerr is going to do. What he's actually going to do, I think, is unquantifiable because it's so random. Kyle Anderson could not have played better in 4 minutes and played 4 minutes in the first half yesterday. I don't know what you're supposed to do other than just like play smatterings of these guys, but like who I'm going to be over or under to is going to base like, what other news do we have that can break? Obviously, both of the main centers, New York Knicks and then obviously Denver Nuggets. If there's a positionality thing where I can get lighter to some of these guys, I'll probably do it. But they make all the sense to be like your main guys rotating different configurations of them just because of where the price points are.
Yeah, and the reason that the Golden State Warriors kind of have to be relevant for this slate. So here are the list of guys that we have out for Golden State. Wiggins is out. Draymond is out. Pajemski is out. Steph is resting today with being the tail end of a back-to-back. We know Kuminga's out for a long stretch of time with his injury. And then you got Gary Payton II expected to miss at least a couple more games here. So you only have a few active players for the Warriors. Trace Jackson Davis, Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield. One thing that should make us feel better about Kyle Anderson today, he's starting. So that should build in some sort of floor of minutes for Kyle Anderson. And for all we know, in hindsight, maybe the reason that we saw somewhat limited minutes from Kyle Anderson yesterday is because Kerr was looking ahead and saying, hey, I'm not going to play Draymond or Curry tomorrow. I want to have Kyle Anderson available for bigger minutes as a veteran. I kind of think that's the case. That's what I felt once I saw Kyle Anderson starting. Because
yeah, I get it.
If he 9 really minutes wanted to play. Sorry, what's that?
Played 9 minutes in a competitive game yesterday. That's what's so dumb. Yeah. And obviously no Wiggins in there was kind of the other thing where, I mean, he couldn't get rotation minutes with Andrew Wiggins out yesterday. There were just so many weird things about it, but I'm with you. There's a world where, yeah, he was maybe trying to give him more limited minutes just so that he stays fresh for today. They can utilize him a little bit more today. But like, I repeat, Moses Moody didn't play yesterday. Moses Moody is in this rotation today. And I think he's like the ultimate wild card because Moses Moody reminds me of like Terrence Ross. Like Terrence Ross for the Magic would walk out and he would have his first rotation. And you would know immediately if you wanted 100% Terrence Ross or 0% Terrence Ross based on that first 4-minute rotation, because it would either turn into a 10-minute rotation and he'd play 28 minutes in a game, or he'd play like 12. Like Moses Moody is going to play somewhere between 12 and 28 minutes today. And I can't figure out what it's going to be, but the field is pretty confident that Moses Moody doesn't matter today. And I am playing so much of him at 3,600 shooting guard, small forward. He's 6% owned. We have him 4% optimal, but I think like a projection for Moses Moody is almost like a moot point. Like it's truly impossible to figure out Steve Kerr. So I'm just going to play the guys that are lower owned. I love Gui Santos today because we just at least saw him in a rotation. I love Moses Moody today. I love Kevon Looney, and I love that our projections are obsessed with the 3,200 Kevon Looney as much as I am, because like Trace Jackson Davis, he can probably play more here on the back-to-back because, you know, he's younger and he doesn't have some of these other precedences. But we saw 21 minutes from Kevon Looney yesterday. The only reason that he wasn't in play was that, you know, we had so much different value that we could rotate between, including on this own team. But he put up 28 and a half in 21 minutes. Kevon Looney gets things done on the boards, gets things done from a fantasy perspective. 3,200 for Kevon Looney today with the dwindled down pieces and rotation pieces here. I just don't see how Golden State is a team that you can poke many holes in just taking shots on guys.
And the starting lineup for the Warriors, by the way, it's Schroeder, it is Lindy Waters, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, Trace Jackson Davis. That's the starting five there. So, I mean, that's the main reason why I feel better about Kyle Anderson's minutes is that he's starting. And if you look at Kyle Anderson, too, he played a significant amount of minutes 2 games ago. He played 27 minutes in a loss to Miami which was one of the other reasons too, that he played those minutes in a loss to Miami. Players were out. It seemed reasonable to me you were going to be getting 20 plus minutes out of him again with the team shorthanded. And then once they go to only 9 minutes on Kyle Anderson, he's starting today. It's just the whole situation. I felt better about his minutes for today. It doesn't mean he plays 40 minutes or something absurd. I just think we're fairly likely to get mid-20s minutes at a minimum from Kyle Anderson. And as long as that's the case, he's going to project fairly well at his price point.
And he should. He should. What I'm saying is that Kyle Anderson, what do you think what do you think the floor on his minutes are today?
And avoiding, like foul trouble or whatever, taking that out of the mix.
Just general. Steve Kerr, understanding that it's Steve Kerr, I would say you and I would both agree there's a world where Kyle Anderson only plays 18 minutes, right?
Let me look at his others. Has he made? Yeah, I'd say like 18.
Yeah. And on the high end, obviously, there's the upside where you just need him in every lineup. Like, that's what Kyle Anderson has. But I'm saying that exists at different capacities throughout this entire rotation in a way where it's so much more random and unpredictable relative to other rotations. Like, we can generally go in and get really, really close on minutes for just about every team in the NBA when it comes to projecting rotations. Golden State has to be the stone cold worst. It's the most difficult by far.
I would say the Nets probably the Nets probably the worst because it's
different ball of wax, but yes.
So
yes.
The reason the Nets are the worst to me is because there's not even a reasonable expectation to figure out who should play what minutes. It's not like at least the Warriors. You can look at the Warriors each night and go, you know what? I know today's a little bit different, but you can look at the Warriors and be like, we know Steph's getting minutes. We know Draymond's getting minutes. There's nobody like that on the Nets roster. Like who's gonna if Noah Clowney starts and plays like 22 minutes. There's no way to look and be like, how did Noah Clowney only play 22 minutes? Because they have an entire roster of replacement level players.
It's fair. That's actually a fair point too.
Yeah, so I'd go Nets is the worst. But yeah, Steve Kerr's rotation is very, very difficult to predict. And it doesn't help that he's got, NPCs mostly in the lineup for him today. We got, we do a super chat here from Jeff Williams. Top 4 plays in the DK 777 tonight. Eric, we have to give Jeff 4 guys to roster in the big high stakes field that, not that many entries. What is it, like 1,000-ish or something? I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. We've got in the 777, it is 434 entrants. So small field, high dollar tournament. If we had to give him 4 players he should be playing, what answer are we giving him?
Buddy Hield.
Dennis Schroeder's another one for me.
Dennis Schroeder. Paul George. And I'm going to go Kevon Looney.
Okay, so Looney's a contrarian one. I get well overweight to the field on Looney using our tools. So I think he's a reasonable contrarian option. Another contrarian option I like is Yabusele. He's only projected for 13% ownership, but I'm just kind of offering an alternative contrarian option at a different price point because Kevon Looney, and by the way, Looney isn't necessarily contrarian. He's projected for 25% ownership, but he is somebody who I do get well overweight to in the sim. So no issues with him as a shout out, but Yabusele, another one that I like for lower ownership. Some questions from Discord. If you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's going to be a half second of your time, and it really does help us a whole lot in the overlords that manage the algorithms that are all secret on the interwebs. Larson 407 wants to know, can we talk about the ownership on Paul George versus Maxey? And then if we prefer to be lower than the field on PG. Relative to his current ownership projection, I'm underweight to the field on Paul George. Although with that said, I kind of have a suspicion that people are out on Paul George and that he's not actually going to be 50% owned. So I have around 40% of Paul George right now, which is less than the projected ownership. I think the field might come in a little bit later because I think a lot of people are fed up with Paul George and think he sucks at this point in time. But $7,500 Paul George, a little bit underweight to the 50% mark. Do you have him in more or less than half your lineups?
So yeah, I'm playing 25 lineups. I have him in 11 of them. So okay. I'm right around that 40% number with you, just a little over 40.
All right. So similar to me. And then Larson also asked, PG versus Maxey. So it's kind of funny, right? Because I have more exposure to Paul George than I do to Maxey. But relative to the projected ownerships, I'm underweight to the field on Paul George while being overweight to the field on Tyrese Maxey. I think Maxey's a good leverage option off of Paul George. If you get a game where Maxey goes nuts, he wasn't really efficient shooting the ball last game, but
that's putting it lightly. As somebody who had him laddered, you're being way too nice to Tyrese Maxey. Have you looked at his shooting splits this year with and without Embiid on the floor? It's actually staggering. It's actually staggering. Have you looked at it?
So I haven't, but what I was going to say on Tyrese Maxey is he took so many shots last game that even being inefficient, he had a pretty good fantasy game. He scored, it was 47 fantasy points. He played right around 40 minutes. He took 27 shots. He was 3 of 14 from 3. Like, how much worse could he potentially shoot from deep? And he still ends up with nearly 50 fantasy points. So if you just get like a mediocre shooting game from Tyrese Maxey, I think you're looking at a pretty good fantasy score. So relative to their salaries, if you're playing a cash game, like, yeah, I think Paul George is the cash play here. But for GPPs, yeah, I like being overweight to the field on Maxey, especially in lineups that don't have Paul George.
Yeah, he's a 1.24 DraftKings points per minute producer this season without Joel Embiid on the floor. And he's got a 51% effective field goal percentage. I mean, we're talking just insane stuff. He was sitting sub 50% with Paul George and Joel Embiid off the floor for his splits for the last game, but Paul George back for this one. His splits come up a little bit there. His assist rate is actually lower than Paul George in their minutes allotment. 437 minutes with Joel Embiid off the floor for Paul George, 27.9% assist percentage. Tyrese Maxey, 27.4%. But the usage, 28% Paul George, 32% for Tyrese Maxey. I got to think Tyrese Maxey, he's going to be out there for maximum minutes. He's somebody I definitely want to be overweight. Again, 20%. If he had like mediocre like results or shot the ball mediocre well in a couple of these recent games, he would be giga chalk today, as our friend Jesse would like to say.
Yeah, and the price tag has also gone up a little bit here on Max. I think he's underrepresented by the field. I like being overweight to him, and hopefully he makes more than like 20% of his threes today. If he makes 30% of it, like 30%.
He was 1 for 10 from 3 in the first half.
So then he was 2 for 4 in the second half because he finished 3 for 14.
He was 1 for 10 from 3 in the first half last game. I watched every minute of it, and let me tell you, it was not for the faint of heart. It was not enjoyable.
And still escaped with a decent fantasy game. That was kind of like it was kind of a floor outcome for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like getting to Maxey is a GPP option. The next question was from Sniffs1234. Can we talk about some of the Washington rotation if the questionable guys are out? Yeah. So obviously different permutations of this because Jordan, let me just make sure there wasn't an update here.
It's not Jordan, it's Jacob, but Jacob.
No. I was saying Jordan Poole.
Oh, got it. I would love to do Nuke of the Night right now.
Well, let's finish answering the question.
We can do that.
Is the Nuke of the Night related to the question?
Yes, it is related to the question. It's
on Washington. So if it's related to the question, then we could do this. So Larson asked, Sniffs asked, can we talk about the Washington rotation if some players are out? So currently questionable players, Jordan Poole. Other questionable player in here is Alex Sarr. So with that in mind, I think I know what Eric's Nuke of the Night is going to be.
You do.
Jordan, go ahead. Sorry, that time I actually did it, and I called Jacob Jordan. Jacob, run the animation for Nuke of the Night, and then we'll... There we go. So, Washington Wizards situation here. We got the question from Discord asking us which Washington rotation pieces we would like if guys from Washington are out. So, Eric, let the people know who it is that you like from Washington in this scenario. And I swear, if you go to some other direction, it would be hilarious and very annoying.
Okay. It is Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma's the Nuke of the Night tonight. So, Jonas Valanciunas makes some sense, obviously, if Sarr ends up being out. He's sub 6K. And Valanciunas had like 8 turnovers last game. It was absolutely hilarious. And he makes sense with Bagley out, with Rashawn Holmes dinged up a little bit, questionable for this game as well. That's something you really want to be paying attention to because they kind of gave some extra minutes there to Rashawn Holmes. But with all that being said, Kyle Kuzma got up to 31 minutes in a competitive spot against Philly here. He had 31 minutes against New Orleans in a less competitive spot. Something tells me that Kyle Kuzma could get some extra run here, 32, 33, 34 minutes in a fast-paced Chicago spot. Look at these last couple of games for Washington. At Philly, not exactly pace up. Houston, not exactly pace up. New Orleans, back-to-back, not exactly pace up. Chicago, last time he played them, only 22 minutes that he had. But man, the pace looks so much better when you just project out the rotations here and then the number of possessions within this game. Yeah, J-Val's going to make sense if you get Sarr, if you get Holmes out as well. But Kyle Kuzma's kind of at that position at the 4 there, going up against Patrick Williams and, whomever else they roll out there in that capacity. I think Kuzma's one of those shiny toys you want to start polishing here before the trade deadline that is ever quickly approaching here in the next month, less than a month away. It will be here. So Kyle Kuzma, 32, 33 minutes in an up-tempo spot here against Chicago, only 7.5% owned. I really like that one, Nuke of the Night.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I've liked playing Kyle Kuzma as a buy low because he's pretty much unrestricted now as long as his Cavs don't give out in the middle of games. So Kyle Kuzma, his price tag is going to go up for here. I think that definitely makes sense. And then especially with the players who are currently questionable to play for Washington, Jordan Poole's to be out, then yeah, you could anticipate pretty good amount of usage going to Kyle Kuzma. So direction that I want to be going with Nuke of the Night, we've got a ton of value on the slate. That's why SGA and Jokic are both popular right now. It's just not hard to get to them. We've got so many cheap options, especially with that Warriors situation. So what I wanted to do, by the way, Sarr is available to play. So I'm assuming we're about to get pool news as well. Let's
find out.
Give it 5 more seconds. Here's a question.
That takes J-Val off the board a little bit, but I will say Kyle Kuzma without Poole on the floor, been around the same 1.05 DraftKings points per minute this season.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you still like Kuzma if Poole plays?
Yeah, I do. I still like Kuzma either way.
Okay. So what I was going to say is we've got all this value on the slate, which makes it really easy to pay up for guys like SGA and Jokic. And I'm trying to find out who's a player that has really high upside that I don't think the field is going to be on very much. And to me, that's Karl Anthony Towns. His upside this year has been ridiculous. His ceiling has been insane. And now on top of it, he's listed as questionable heading into lock. If he happens to end up getting ruled out, it's not going to be that hard to make some adjustments, especially because SGA is on the other side of this game. So if Cat sits, whatever, late swap my lineups. I've still got SGA available to me. We still have Jokic available as well because Jokic is in the last locking game of the slate. And I still think that Cat's ownership is going to be depressed just because he's questionable at this point in time. So if he's out, easy for me to make swaps. If he's in, I think he's an underrepresented piece by the field who's not all that hard to get to now.
I'm so unbelievably here for it. I'm just glad that I was able to get your Nuke of the Night ahead of time. I feel like that's your superpower.
There we go. It's because we know each other. We've got that connection. It's all that dirty sex we have after shows. So there we have it. Nuke of the Night for today. Let's see what it is that we have for questions that came in while we were going over the Nuke of the Night. We just answered the question from Sniffs. And I mean, the other part of this too, we were talking about players who we potentially like to be getting to if the Washington rotation players are out. Some of that kind of goes by the wayside now because Sarr was ruled in. So that's going to make Valanciunas.
I'm not going to get as much Kuzma. So I hope you understand that, everybody. Like Sarr, that one's going to shift it because you take Sarr, he's a much better fantasy producer with Sarr off the floor. I was kind of hoping that would break that way, but I'm still going to play some Kyle Kuzma, just not as nuke-ish as what he was before. I'll give my official nuke once again before we get out of here, but is what it is.
News God, he was looking for the Nuke of the Night animation, which we just ran right there. And then we've got J12 for Heisman. Anyone we're boosting for flexibility? Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is one who I like to be boosting, get a little bit more exposure to. Eric,
third time around. Russell Westbrook. I mean, third time around the block. I just want to have some Westbrook in the chamber. I mean, it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, he would have put up 60 if that game was competitive against the Clippers. It would have just been an absolute smash fest. It still was. It was still good, but I will definitely have some Russell Westbrook against a bad team on the other side. I mean, this is like This is like the Russell Westbrook wet dream. I mean, this is like everything he lives for. Like, you have to boost him a little bit. Otherwise, you're just not going to get him.
I have a question for you. Is Jokic's ownership going to come down after lock just because of the fact that he's still questionable and he missed the last 2 games?
Yes. I have to tell you, Jokic, I have an ungodly amount of right now in the Sims. Again, only playing 25 lineups, so it's not going to be as bad as it might be playing 150. But I look at, I mean, it just really depends. I could see him falling sub 30%, even with all the value we have. I mean, you should really be boosting him, making sure that you have some salary spots there that have just been shored up with him. But we have Giannis, we have SGA, we have Tatum. I feel as though Giannis is maybe going a little bit slept on, considering he's still got ridiculous upside. He's been distributing at a higher clip alongside Chris Middleton than what Dame has been. Just looking at some of the splits with Middleton off the floor, Giannis has had the higher assist rate between the two this season, which I didn't expect coming into this season. There's probably a world where you could dump off some of that, depending on what time we get this news. But right now, leading into lock, we're going to know what Giannis's ownership is going to be. We're going to know what Tyrese Halliburton, what Tatum potentially at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30. So the timing of the news is going to be really, really important, because after 8 p.m., there's no safety net. Like, you are basically rolling out Jokic blindly. And I don't think a lot of people want to do that. People don't want to take zeros, and they don't want to leave 4,000 in salary on the, you don't want to do that in NBA anyway, but I'm just saying, like, people don't want to get left holding the bag. So I'm with you. I think Jokic ownership comes way down if he's still questionable coming into lock.
Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. As always, Chris, we appreciate you supporting the channel and look forward to seeing you over in playback after this. And then Eddie Sedja left us a super chat. He says, in the big DK 100K to first, who are the best value plays? So it's still the Golden State guys. So let's answer this a couple of different ways. The chalk value plays that look good, it's Buddy Hield, it's Kyle Anderson, Kevon Looney, who is popular but not insanely so. We've got him project for 25% ownership. Sims give me a pretty good amount of overweights to field on him. Lindy Waters, who's going to be starting for Golden State as well. He's in the starting unit. I call those the best overall value options, points per dollar. Are there any guys who are sub 4K, Eric, that you like getting to who are not all that popular?
Pull up my lineups here. There were 2 that I had my eye on. One was TJ McConnell, because it's TJ McConnell. He's 3,700 on today's slate. And I feel like the scales, like, we've seen Tyrese Halliburton play a lot better. Like, I don't think it's really even disputable. He's been playing way better basketball. I think the shoulder looks like it's finally coming together. He's shooting on the road for the people who care. And that's kind of resulted in TJ McConnell having his minutes reduced. Oh my God, we got Jordan Hawkins starting for the Pelicans. That's not fun.
All right. Pelicans starting lineup: DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, and then we got Javonte Green and Yves Missi. You know, it's funny. I was just about to give out a contrarian punt option I like.
Robinson Earl.
Down, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Robinson Earl. He is left to the shadow realm.
Yes. That's what I was going to say, is that Jeremiah Robinson Earl started last game. It didn't go well. The Pelicans also just got completely annihilated in that game. I mean, what does it matter? I'm giving analysis for a situation that didn't happen. I thought it was a good bounce back spot to.
I think that's a good piece of. Sometimes you can give the people information that obviously changes, but like explaining the change. Eventually, Jeremiah Robinson Earl probably steps back into a starting rotation, but remembering that he got absolutely blitzkrieged in that first rotation, and then he basically got benched for the entire rest of that first half. He was dead on arrival, basically. And so it doesn't shock me that they changed it up. I'm just shocked that they went to Jordan Hawkins.
With Hawkins starting now, he is somebody who's going to look pretty good as a cheap option. Is he any good? No. Not as a real life player, but you're talking about a guy who likes to chuck the basketball, who's nearly min price and is starting. So we're going to have to add him to the mix of the top value play for the slate.
Yeah, I might like him the most. I mean, he is quite possibly the worst defender I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, truly the stone cold worst. But there are times that he shot the ball pretty well from deep. That's kind of what he's asked to do. He 36.6% in his rookie season last year. This season, not going as well, 31.3%, but The usage, friends, 21.5% over the course of this season. He had been playing more minutes recently until basically falling out of the rotation. Yeah, he's going to look really good. I also think this makes Brandon Boston look better too. I kind of like him coming off the bench, and people aren't going to click on Brandon Boston. I think he falls into the same kind of stratosphere as a Moses Moody, where he's going to come in, chuck it ad nauseum. I think Brandon Boston, people have started to wear thin on him. He's kind of randomly been falling into lineups and optimizers and in the Sims tool and things of that nature, but he is underowned, and he's going to probably fall down even further down the pipeline. And I think people expected him to start last game. He didn't start again here today. Brandon Boston is probably better suited coming off the bench, maybe walking into some, not blowout run. They're taking on Philly. This should be competitive, but I think 25 minutes of him off the bench is going to look all right.
Yeah. I'm not even sure he gets to 25 minutes would probably be my biggest concern with Brandon Boston, because he played a lot of blowout run, if I remember correctly, last game, and he wasn't really a big part of the rotation prior to that.
Let me pull it up here just because.
So Brandon Boston.
There was no Zion last game either, if you remember that too. So like there's some different moving pieces that existed there. It's weird. Jeremiah Robinson Earl
Zion's not playing today.
No, I was saying that Zion was out last game that they broke down. Like they played the Portland Trailblazers. Last game, he wasn't in.
Yeah, but he's not in today either. So I'm just saying.
I know he isn't. No. I'm just saying, I'm explaining like the rotations as I'm setting the stage for talking through it. I've got it on Popcorn Machine, but Javonte Green, Matkovich, Reeves, Robinson Earl, and Jordan Hawkins. That was your closing five. And Hawkins played the entire fourth quarter. Basically probably played himself into a starting role here today just by actually showing some sort of sign of life. I mean, getting blown out by Portland is about as stone cold bad as it gets, but with no Zion out there, with an opportunity for him to eat up some usage there, 21.5, maybe to like the 22.5 type range. I mean, you're still sharing the floor with some other ball hogs, whether that's, just the litany of ball hogs that they have there, but there's no Trey Murphy, no Brandon Ingram, no Herb Jones, no Zion Williamson. I think Jordan Hawkins, I'm going to like him a lot, especially because that news came out later.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what our projection ends up being on him, both in terms of minutes and the actual projection. And let's see, we have one from 3 minutes ago. Is this going to include a Hawkins update? Let's see. I believe so. Yeah, Hawkins looks pretty solid. We have him in for 28.5 minutes. That puts him in for nearly 23 fantasy points at $3,200. That's a guy on the slate. That's a guy. I guess the question here becomes, if you could punt with one guy, Eric, obviously we're going to want to have some exposure to both, but Lindy Waters, $3,300, or Jordan Hawkins at $3,200. I think this is going to be a decision point for a lot of people playing DFS today. If you're only picking one of them, which direction do you go?
Hawkins.
I think Hawkins for myself as well. Cheaper, projects a little bit better. As you mentioned, we've known Lindy Waters is going to start for a little bit longer. So that could be something the field just already has Lindy Waters in a lineup and isn't going to take him out. So I'm with you. Jordan Hawkins. I like both of them, but Hawkins would be my slight preference there. Chris Albers wants to know, how do we feel about Monk and Sabonis? Sabonis, I don't really like all that much for this slate. Monk, relative to his ownership with De'Aaron Fox out, he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Obviously, the matchup is horrific going up against the Boston Celtics. There's blowout risk there as well. I think Monk is a pretty good contrarian play. If this game stays competitive, it's hard for me to see that happening without Monk having a big game, considering how big of underdogs they are and how often the ball is going to have to be in his hands, sans De'Aaron Fox.
100%.
Jeff Williams, any Santos love? He was first off the bench last game, and who is the backup point guard for the Golden State Warriors? Let's see. Who are we going to consider the backup point guard for the Warriors today? Probably Pat Spencer. I mean, you could call it, honestly, they could stagger the minutes of Dennis Schroeder and Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson could play point guard too. Anderson will play point guard minutes tonight.
Yeah, I think even just talking through that makes me feel better about my Kyle Anderson exposure, because Kyle Anderson, he was a point guard at UCLA when he was in college, then going with with Memphis first, and then with my Minnesota Timberwolves. He's always kind of been second unit ball handling duty if needed. Just hasn't always been needed in certain circumstances for him. It's needed today. I think Kyle Anderson is probably your backup point guard.
Pat Spencer is not out. Somebody in chat saying that Pat Spencer is out. I think
Spencer is definitely in.
You know who you have him confused with? Cam Spencer was ruled out earlier.
There you go. Yep. There's two Spencers. They guarded each other the other day. It was really cool.
Yeah, understandable. So we did get a word earlier today. What was it? Cam Spencer was out for, it was like some extended period of time. But don't worry, we got Pat Spencer in the lineup today. Not somebody who's going to make his way into my lineups because there's a good enough amount of value to him getting to other guys. You know, the Warriors are so shorthanded that, like Eric said before, any of these cheap guys can end up having a decent game. You never know which direction Steve Kerr will go, but Pat Spencer a little bit too thin for me.
Same.
And let's see. Oh, so for Jeff Williams' question, also the other part, any Santos love? I'll have some exposure to him. I tend to think he's going to come in much higher on than his ownership projection just because of his game yesterday. I know if you just look at the data, you'll go like, oh, look, this guy had a good game yesterday. Played extended minutes. The Warriors are even more shorthanded and nobody's playing him. He's going to be fairly popular today. I have exposure to him. I'm overweight relative to what our ownership projection is, but I think he's going to be more popular than the ownership projection.
Agreed.
Gui Santos. And then, hey, Alvin Dimery. It's been a minute since we've gotten asked this one, Eric. Exotic play of the night. Which direction are you going? Does Jacob have that animation handy, by the way?
Going to financially recover from this.
There we go. Listen,
Timing of that was absurd. Jordan Klein could never. Shout out producer Jacob.
When you get a slate where there's a lot of players ruled out and the backups are starting to enter rotation, that really is the exotics night to shine. So Eric, do you have an exotic play of the night handy for the people?
Nikola Jokic.
It is an easy one. It is. He kind of breaks the gimmick a little bit.
He does a little bit because he's kind of good, and it doesn't necessarily just go with our ridiculous, stupid thematics that we have going with some of these. But if you want me to get off the board, one guy we haven't talked about that I think is really, really interesting for tournaments today. What do you think about Isaiah Hartenstein going back into New York? I don't think there are many coaches that are just like, oh, let's give him an unlimited amount of run. He's facing his former team. But like Hartenstein fell into a great situation. He's going to be out there for as many minutes against Karl Anthony Towns. I really do want Karl Anthony Towns to suit up in order for this to be truly what we want. But we're talking about one of the best offensive centers in basketball going up against potentially the best defensive center in basketball. I think we see potentially 34, 35 minutes in a competitive spot for Hartenstein, which again, ramps up. We don't see many competitive OKC games just because we saw one against Cleveland. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is awesome for tournaments today.
Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't qualify as exotic, but I don't know if that was the direction you were trying to go.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that.
Yeah, that was a whole podcast that Josh Hart did.
I forgot that. But anyway, it's definitely going along with it. I think Jokic is definitely the guy then.
Yeah, it's hard to not answer Nikola Jokic. If I'm going to be a little bit more on the contrarian side, I'm a little bit overweight to Kristaps Porzingis going up against the Sacramento Kings. So that's another direction. But yeah, the real answer, it's pretty clearly Nikola Jokic for tonight. Top exotic. Next question here. I'll dive into the Discord channel. We got one here from Sean Jeezy. And if you guys haven't checked out Sean's new Tails package, if you're looking for somebody who's had a ton of success, especially in contests like the Mini Max for NBA DFS GPPs using the Stokastic tools, go sign up for Sean's Tails package because it is something that he's doing in theirs. He's kind of letting people know how it is that he's leveraging the tools each night. And he's been one of our subs that's had the most success since those tools have come out. So go check out Sean's Tails package. He also wants to know between Maxey McCollum and Murray Feels like one might go nuclear in this game. Who do we like the most for large field? Maxey, McCollum, and DeJounte Murray.
Maxey by a country mile.
Yeah, Maxey for me as well with Embiid out. He's taking so many shots with Embiid off the court. Eric said it before. His efficiency has been terrible without Embiid this season, but the opportunity is clearly there. So that's the answer to me. That Pelicans team, I never know what to make of the Pelicans. You get CJ McCollum will score 55 points one day, then it's like 8 points the next game. They're all over the place. There's an upside in DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum, but Maxey's my favorite of that group.
Yeah, it's truly like a country mile between Maxey and those other guys. And would I be surprised if we got a massive upside from DeJounte Murray, who's had shooting struggles himself? I mean, the guy is shooting. I just want you to guess what DeJounte Murray is shooting from the field this season.
It depends if I have bets against him or not, because I feel like anytime I bet his under threes this year, he's like 2 of 1 from 3 at halftime. Like, how did he take one and only make it? How did he make 2 and only take 1?
38.7% from the field is so bad there aren't words for it. And then 25.5% from 3 on 110 attempts. Maybe stop attempting them if you're going to shoot 25%. That's Russell Westbrook pre-Denver kind of numbers. Those are not good numbers.
There's a point in time where DeJounte Murray was such a sought-after commodity when he was on the Spurs, and he's just landed in spots that don't fit for him. I'm also not even, like, no projections even rate him out as all that good. Like, I don't know what happened to the development of DeJounte Murray, but it seems like he peaked 5 years ago and then just slowly got worse.
So my Timberwolves were in the running. It was them in Atlanta. Those were the two main teams that basically were talking about things, and I was really upset at the time because I think they wanted Jaden McDaniels and somebody else. And I was like, oh, Jaden McDaniels, what? And I am so glad that I wasn't running the Minnesota front office, because I would have ran that thing directly into the ground for DeJounte Murray. I wanted DeJounte Murray instead of Jeff Teague so badly. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. DeJounte Murray, he's serviceable on the defensive end at times. Offensively, he's been actually downright atrocious this year. There's not really a lot of redeeming qualities at this point.
Yeah, he's also responsible for the worst betting beat that I've had of the entire season. There was a day that I had him under 8.5 assists. He was at 4 with a minute left and hit the over.
Not great, Bob.
Yeah, that was
absurd.
A rough one.
That's actually absurd.
That was a rough one. Yeah, he had 3 assists in the final minute of the game and then got stat corrected 2 more assists after the game ended. I was very confused.
Oh my God.
I was very confused by that.
Brutal.
Einsteinium, thoughts on the cheap Pelicans guys and how do we feel about Tatum compared to SGA? So I prefer SGA to Tatum. As far as the cheap Pelicans guys, I'm rerunning lineups for the starting lineup now. I think I'm going to get to a pretty decent amount of Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah, I think I am too. We got the update. We didn't change much on the projection, did we?
Yeah. He got he got, I think it was 2.5 extra minutes, and his projection went up as well.
I was trying to see the backlog and see what changed, but I couldn't find it there.
Yeah, just some extra minutes. So his minutes went up. I think his points per minute rate went down a little bit because he's a starter instead of coming off the bench. But ultimately, it meant like 1.5 more fantasy points, which I had some of him before. He's not going to be like 60 or 70% in my lineups or something like that, but I assume I'll have like 20 to 30% or something. It's a good chunk.
Word.
The next question, so the other part, I prefer SGA to Tatum. For yourself, Eric?
I prefer SGA as well. Correct.
Okay. And to kick off this final
I'm getting one more too.
And see what I get to. Next question here. It is from, we've answered all of those. Have we answered Super Chat from Olrat14 wants to know how much Washington Chicago players in highest points of the day. All right. So highest Washington Chicago players. I don't think I have that much exposure to. I mean, I'll see when everything finishes running here. On the Washington side, I agree with Eric. I think Kyle Kuzma is somebody to be getting to. And if Jordan Poole's out, he'll look even stronger. Other than that, though, I know it's a game that is shitty defense and should have a lot of points scored. Zach LaVine is a really strong option. He's a player that I get a lot of, but I think he's the only player in that game that I have more than 25% of.
Yeah. Is there any world where Johnny Davis would start over for Poole because of how he's played recently?
Potentially. We'll have to see what the starting lineup is. Probably not,
Yeah.
but maybe.
I think there's a world where they do that. I mean, it's the Wizards. Who cares? Like, they might as well go and utilize them there. I don't think it's likely, but something to keep in mind. And if Poole ends up out, the one guy that I don't have that I'd try to get a little bit of is Kaishan George yet again, too. 3,500. Terrible fantasy producer, but cheap.
Yeah, so from the Bulls side of the game, Zach LaVine, Vooch is a viable exotic as a contrarian option, pulling 8% ownership. I have 10% of him.
I hate that bid so much. I hate it. Every time you say it, it just makes me upset.
Yeah, I've got some Kuzma. But in terms of like really high priorities, as of right now, the highest priority player for me from that game is Zach LaVine. He's the one I have the most exposure to.
Yep, Zach LaVine as well.
Next question.
I've got to trim this down. But...
We are all caught up on questions now. So we are good to go on that end. A few minutes left to go. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for any of the packages we have at Stokastic.com, link is down below in the YouTube description box. Don't forget, we also have our link join offer. So if you guys are looking to get a free month of any of our core packages, sign up for any of our affiliate partners. And for each one you sign up for, one free month of core access. Eric, in the final version of your lineups here, is there anything showing up that maybe you weren't expecting or is different from the start of the show?
See, I mean, I have less Kuzma. There is definitely that. He's come down. Just when I updated all the rates for SAR being in, I was hoping we were going to get that news to break both directions. I do think Johnny Davis is an interesting ROI boost, which again is not something I thought I would be saying at any point this season, but it would appear he's not even showing up like in my lineups period right now.
Did you mean Jared Butler, by the way?
Oh, Jared Butler. That's who I meant. Sorry. I meant to say Butler, but whatever. I keep thinking about
like Johnny Davis will be in the rotation if Poole sits, but
yeah.
I don't think
I got a lot of Brandon Boston. I think Brandon Boston looks better. I know he's like 24% owned or something right now. I really like getting to Brandon Boston off the bench. I don't know if he ends up as popular now with all of the other value early. He is definitely somebody I want to be over the field on.
All right, one last second super chat here from Malcolm Revamp. So let's answer this really quick so that he could actually take some action on this. He wants to know, can I get a core play? We got Cat in, Deuce McBride also in. So there we go. Cat officially rolled in 2 minutes before lock. Yeah, I like him as a contrarian spend-up option. He was my nuke of the night, somebody I'm going to be sticking with there. Core play for Malcolm Revamp. All right, Eric, let's give our favorite chalk play to Malcolm Revamp and our favorite contrarian play. My favorite chalk play is Buddy Hield. Your favorite chalk option?
Kyle Anderson. I'm doing it now. Yep. Kyle Anderson.
Okay. Kyle Anderson for Eric. My favorite contrarian option, we'll just say anybody who's sub 20% owned. Cat.
Tyrese Maxey.
All right. There we have it for each of us. Yeah, Maxey just under 20. Yeah, pretty similar. 17 and 18% ownership on those two guys. Sam Lechner, how many Warriors are you comfortable getting into lineups? Yeah, I think it's pretty viable to play lineups with up to 5 Warriors today. It's not like my favorite way to build lineups, but these guys are all so cheap. It's not crazy to have like, hey, Buddy Hield scores 25 fantasy points. Kyle Anderson scores 20. Lindy Waters scores 20. Gui Santos scores 20. So you could play up to 5 Warriors, and I think that's viable.
100%.
And just making sure there was no other last-second questions that came in, which there are not. So, guys, don't forget that even though the YouTube show is ending here in about 60 seconds, Josh and I are going to be over in playback for the next hour or so to break down any kind of late-breaking news, anything that changes that would alter the slate. And there's a couple of big ones. Jordan Poole is still questionable. That certainly matters. Nikola Jokic, that guy matters to the slate. He's still questionable as well. Jordan Poole, in addition, we did get word is going to be a game-time decision, which is not really all that surprising. Once players are not ruled in or out, an hour before the game starts, there's kind of only one way they could go, which is to be a game time decision. So Jordan Poole knows we are going to be getting it at some point during the playback show. And the Jokic news, maybe we get it during the playback show. But you guys should check it out to find out. So playback, I will drop a link. Oh, Jacob's already done and dropped the playback link in there. One more time, guys, if you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys want to be watching more of us, come join Josh and I over in playback. Peace.